Hi everyone, my name is Janice Courtois and I'm a biomed. I've been a biomed for about a little over 15 years now. So today I'm going to show you how to do the preventive maintenance and some basic troubleshooting tips for a 3M Model 775 Bair Hugger system, and it's a patient warming system. So it has some set temperatures that you can choose: 32 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius, and 43 degrees Celsius. And then this operates with a blower, so it's taking room air up through a filter on the bottom into a blower, and it's coming out with the temperature that the user selected through this hose. And this hose connects to a, usually it's a disposable blanket that's on the patient. So there's several different ways that it's checking the temperature. There's two thermistors in the end of this hose, and then there's one inside this elbow right here. So it's constantly monitoring the temperature. There are a few safety features too. There's an over temperature circuit that will alarm if it gets above anywhere between 46 and 56 degrees Celsius. It'll alarm over temp. And there's also a series of faults that it'll alarm for different reasons, and it gives a fault code which you can look up in the service menu and determine what caused the fault. So let's get started with the preventive maintenance. There's first of all, the service manual is always on my laptop. I've been doing this for many years, but I still need to reference the service manual for most preventive maintenances. I'm not going to remember exactly what the instructions are every single time, so it's best to just review your preventive maintenance instructions before you start. And we're going to start with the electrical safety test, which is done on all medical devices, or the majority of them. And so I'm going to use my electrical safety tester here. I happen to have a Pronk safety sim, and I'm going to plug in my Bair Hugger to my electrical safety tester. And I'm going to take my test lead from my electrical safety tester and attach it to the ground lug on the back of this device, which is right here. Now, some devices don't have a ground lug, in which case you have to find a good spot where you get a good ground. This one has a nice ground lug. It's much easier that way. I'm going to go ahead and run through my tests here. First, I'm going to do ground resistance. And I'm getting 74 milliohms. Now the standards are half an ohm or 500 milliohms, so we're well below that. If I did get a higher ground reading than what I would like, then first thing I do is I would check the power cord. There may be a loose ground pin on this end, or maybe just a poor connection at the equipment. So first thing is to always look at your power cord when you have ground resistance problems. And of course you want to make sure you have a good ground connection for your test lead. The next test I'm going to do is an earth leakage test. In this, we want below 500 microamps. I'm getting 31 microamps, so that's well below. I'm going to turn the device on. And I'm still getting 27 microamps. So that's a good reading, below 500. Now I'm going to go to chassis leakage. I'm getting 3 microamps with the device on. You can see the blower working over there. And I'm going to close my ground. I'm going to open my ground. Right now it's closed. I'm going to open my ground. And I get 33 microamps with the device on. So those are my electrical safety tests. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to unplug my Bair Hugger. And next thing I'm going to do is check my filter. So according to the manufacturer, the filter is replaced every 12 months or 500 hours. We check ours every 6 months here. The other tests are recommended every 6 months. So while we have the unit in our shop, we're going to check the filter. Most rooms in the hospital get pretty dusty. These can run for several hours. They're used a lot in surgical areas, pre-post surgical areas, ICUs, anywhere where the patient needs to maintain help maintaining their body temperature. So this device, even though it says the filters every 12 months, we check it every 6 months. So to check it, the filter is underneath the Bair Hugger here. So I'm going to turn it over. Okay. And then there's 2 screws. I'm going to show you where those are that you have to undo right here. So this is the filter retainer that you're looking at right here. And then there's a screw right here, and there's one down here. So I'm going to remove those 2 screws, and then I will check the filter. Here's my filter retainer. Nothing too special about it, but it can collect some dust too on the way to the filter. So this one is pretty clean. Otherwise I would clean it off. And here's our filter. So this one looks very clean. If it was really dirty, I would just put a new one in. But since it looks fairly clean, I'm just going to blow off any extra dust. Okay, now I'm going to reinstall the filter. And this has these little louvers here, and so I'm going to make sure that they're pointing towards the back, because the airflow, the room air comes in from the back of the unit. So these do have a specific direction for installation. So you just want to make sure whenever you remove something that you put it back the same way you found it. Okay, now that our filter is back in, I'm going to position this back upright here. And I'm going to prep it for the first preventive maintenance test. The first test is calibrating the operating temperature. So for this test, I'm going to plug in the Bair Hugger to just a regular outlet. And I have this test device that I purchased from 3M. Just makes it a little more convenient for testing. It comes with a thermocouple right inside of this acrylic tube, which attaches very easily to the end of the hose. And there's a little mesh to create a little resistance there for the flow. And then it comes with this thermocouple plug, which will go right to my digital thermometer here. So pretty simple to set up. So right now my thermometer is reading about 22 degrees Celsius, so that's room temperature. And that's what we're gonna test our operating temperature with. We're gonna test it at ambient, which is room temperature. So I'm gonna hit the ambient button here. I'm gonna make sure my hose is straight so there's no kinks, no obstructions. And we'll just let that go. I'm going to show you the front of this device a little bit closer. So here we have the standby button here, ambient temperature, which is lit up. That means that's what we have right now on. We have our 3 different operating temperatures, 32, 38, and 43 degrees Celsius. We can choose high flow or low flow. For all testing, we want high flow. And then our display shows us our actual, or what the unit is reading for the temperature. So right now it's reading between 21 and 22 degrees Celsius. Now over here we have some indicator lights. We have temperature and range. So when we select one of these temperatures, this light will come on when it gets within 3 degrees plus or minus of the selected temperature. We have our fault indicator. So anytime there's any electrical faults, this will light up and we'll see a fault code on the screen. And then we have our overtemp indicator. So if it gets between 46 and 56 degrees Celsius, this will light up, the unit will turn off, and we'll see an overtemp error. And the alarm will continue until the unit's unplugged. It's a basic overview of the operation. So right now we have it at ambient mode. We're going to let it run for 10 minutes, wait for all the electronics to stabilize in temperature, our thermocouples to stabilize, so that way when we go in to calibrate the temperature, we can be as accurate as possible. So we'll give this 10 minutes. So once our 10 minutes is up, then we're going to go in and calibrate it through a service menu. So we have several different service menus that are accessed through the keypad with a combination of keys. So the first one we're going to use is the ambience button and the Bair. And we're going to push down on both buttons until we see the screen change. Okay, so now we're in the calibration mode. So these 2 LEDs are blinking, and up here I can see that my temperature is 21.6 and my offset is minus 1.7. So this lets us change the temperature reading on the Bair Hugger to match what our calibrated thermometer at the hose end says. So right now my thermometer is reading 23.2 degrees Celsius and we're reading 21.6. on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and increase this by pressing, and that's a safety feature, it just shut off because I was taking too long in the service menu. So I'm going to restart and get back into my service mode. Okay, so I need to increase this temperature to match my meter temperature, which is 23.1. So I'm just going to increase this till I reach 23.1 or close to there. Okay, so I'm about there. I'm at 23.0, which is close enough. And then to get out of this, I'm going to hit the bear, and I go back in standby. So now, when I press ambience, go back into regular ambient operating mode, and I have 23 degrees Celsius on my screen, and I have 23.1 degrees Celsius on my meter. Next, we're going to let this run for 5 minutes and stabilize again, and then we'll do our over temperature test. So set the timer, wait for 5 minutes, come back, and we're going to go into the over temp calibration. It's not really, well, it's an over temp test mode. So it's a Bair and 43 degrees. We're going to press both of those and hold them. And now we're in over temp test mode. This is where I need to look at my meter and see at what temperature does my over temp test stop. What's the highest temperature on my meter? And it has to be between 46 and 56 degrees Celsius. So we're just gonna keep an eye on that and see. It kind of runs this test itself, and at the end it'll give me an indicator on my little screen saying pass or fail. So we're gonna wait until it gets up to the highest temperature, which right there, that was 49 degrees Celsius. So that's well within the 46 to 56 degrees Celsius specifications from the manufacturer. And on my screen it says OT test pass, unplug to reset. So we're gonna do that, we're gonna unplug. Okay, I'm gonna plug it back in. And then, according to the service manual, we need to let it run for about 5 minutes to cool it off, because it did reach that high temp of 49 degrees. So I'm gonna set it at 32 degrees Celsius, let it run for about 5 minutes. Make sure I get my temperature and range indicator when it gets to that, and there we go, it just came on. And my meter says 32.6 right now. So that's working very well. And as far as troubleshooting, we have, there's the fault codes which give you an indication of what is going on with your unit. The biggest thing that I see is the hose overheating alarm or damage to the hose. So the fault indicator will actually tell you which sensor was causing the alarm. We have, like I said, we have 2 sensors in the end of the hose, and then we have a sensor in the elbow. This is the one they call the internal sensor. So it actually, the fault code actually tells you which sensor had the issue, if it was shorted or wasn't just wasn't. I think the other ones were shorted, and if it was open, shorted, or if there was an over temperature condition. Those are some of the fault codes. The other thing that I see, again, it's mostly physical damage with these. They're used a lot. They're rolled around from room to room. The keypads get damaged frequently, and beds can crush the top of the cases, so we see a lot of physical damage on, just from daily use. That's it for the 3M Bair Hugger preventive maintenance. Again, do your electrical safety test, check or change the filter, make sure it's clean, and do your operating temperature calibration and your over temp test. And then just let it run, and if you're feeling a little chilly, it's kind of nice to have it running in your shop. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.